I remember that in the earlier scripts, E.T. and Elliot were always, when they fell ill, taken to a hospital. And then it was up to Michael and his friends to come and rescue them from the hospital. And I remember scouting hospital after hospital. We couldn't find a hospital we really liked that would be available to us on a scale that we needed.
Steven came in from an international flight. And at the time, at Los Angeles International Airport, they were building the Bradley terminal, and they had a temporary structure erected for international flights, and it was one of these big pneumatic structures. Well, he had the idea, which was absolutely brilliant and psychologically so appropriate, to take the whole thing and bring it back to the home, which is this warm, comfortable environment that we've gotten used to where the kids are growing up turns into a nightmare.
And it made a lot of sense to me that the house would be the place that the government would seal up, shut down the neighborhood surrounding it, and do their work there.
Stay with me. Please stay together. I'll be right here. I'll be right here.
I had worked so much with the E.T. and the character, and it all started to become very tangible to me, where I could just draw on the actual experience, what was going on in the scene, which is something that's very, very special, I think, when you can do that, because it makes it all the more real. You're not pulling something from a previous experience, you're drawing on the there and now.
Quiet!
It's still beef thin.
Okay, let's go. Okay, let's go. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Mom!
I don't think tears have ever been that readily available to me in my entire life.
Okay, you want to identify with that?
Yeah. Wipe the doll's face, too. Thank you. Thank you. Movies are so sad, especially this one.
Biggest actor of them all.
You know, I think it's going to be, it'll be sadder if it's happy sad. You know what I'm saying? And I think you'll feel sadder if it's more you're trying to cover that up. You're trying to cover the sadness with some happy talk to E.T. Like, remember when?
Yeah.
Remember 3 weeks ago? Remember when you first came into the house with me and I showed you Guido and Hammerhead and
Trying to hide it with a
Snaggletooth?
smile.
Trying to hide it with a smile a little bit, yeah.
He's an incredible sculptor of a story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very, that was a very important moment in the film, you know, and I think that in his hands, he knew what to get out of us.
I looked at the sequence, and I had a bunch of storyboards for the sequence, so each of us got a rough idea of what these things had to do, how we had to build the scale on the bikes, how we had to scale up the puppets. They were fairly large for animation puppets. I think the tallest one was probably 2 feet tall, which is quite big. Ordinarily, you work on a scale of about, I don't know, 8 or 10 inches. It's just easier to work that way. Easier as an animator to work that way. But these were built large so that we could get the detail into the bikes, so that we could get the detail into the outfits that the kids had to wear, which were made out of actual clothing, so that all this would, like, you know, scale up appropriately.
I really think that a big part of the reason the movie hasn't aged very much and it feels somewhat timeless is because, in a sense, it was never designed to be an effects movie. And so, even though we had to create that creature with the technology that existed then, Steven shot E.T. as a character in a way that he really existed. He wasn't trying to call attention to the fact that isn't this a great effect? He was really trying to achieve something that would feel as real as possible. And as I said, even with ILM, the contribution was, I remember a lot of the reviews even said, was seamless. And it's because we didn't want a sky with a sliver moon to say, oh, isn't that a great effect shot? We wanted it to look like we'd actually shot that perfect night moon. And I think also, Steven made a very crucial decision in the design of the spaceship. And he said, I want this to look like Jules Verne. And again, that placed it in a kind of timeless context. He wasn't trying to come up with some sort of futuristic look at what outer space creatures may be flying around in. He took something that we already subconsciously identified with.
Well, Ralph McQuarrie contributed the entire design from scratch of the spaceship.
I explored various shapes that I thought would be interesting, that would be sort of in that category of the Dr. Seuss thing.
Ralph wanted to do a different spaceship, and he had this great concept on his own to do a bobble, just an oval, just a complete circle, with a very reflective mylar surface that would reflect the trees of the forest in Northern California and, you know, reflect the sky and the rainbow clouds. I mean, it was a wonderful concept, and he made this very kind of quixotic rendering where the E.T. spaceship looked a bit like E.T. It was squat, it had legs, and had little kind of like feet that went out from under it. And it was just, I just fell in love with the design, didn't question it, and just said, that's it, let's build it.
The hardest scene for me was probably the goodbye scene.
You'll walk all the way from here, right over to E.T., and you'll take your position in front of him. And the first thing he says is, he says, stay. He says, come. He puts his hands up and he says, come. And your mom and dad are waiting right over there off camera. And you just look over at your mom, and she is pleading with you not to go. She has tears in her eyes, she's sitting on her, she's actually fallen to her knees, and she's, just with her eyes, not with anything she says, just with her eyes, she's saying to you almost mentally, don't go, please stay with me, stay home. And that you just turn back to E.T., and you don't have to say, no, I can't, don't have to verbalize it, just shake your head and make E.T. know that you can't go with him.
You want to try sticking it down?
And at that point, E.T. lowers his head. He lowers his head real sadly, and he touches his heart, and he says, ouch. And then you'll touch your heart, and you'll say ouch back to him. Because it hurts you as much as it's hurting him. This is a real heart-breaking moment for the two of you.
Easy, stay.
And then, after touching the heart, E.T. is going to put his hands on your shoulders, and he's going to bring you in for a hug. And you'll hug this side of E.T., you'll have his hand on this side, and you'll just hug for a while. Or just have you hugging for a while. And then you'll separate, and E.T. will point right to your forehead, right between your eyes. And he says, right here. He says, I'll be right here. And you'll reach out your hand, you just sort of touch his cheek. And he has a little tear in his eye, just pretend there's a tear, then you'll wipe a tear away from E.T.'s face. And we'll play it that way. Okay? Real softly and gently, and no rush.